Hello, everyone. Here from the Global Forum for Food and Agriculture. My name is Alfred Grant. I am an organic farmer and entrepreneur from Austria, and I have the honor to be the moderator for this session, panel number 14. And on soil microbial diversity is crucial for plant and planetary health. I'm very happy to welcome you here. It's already late in the afternoon. I am based in Austria. I'm sitting not in Berlin, but I'm sitting right back on my farm in Austria. So I hope everything works out very well here with the technology and with the internet. And I'm looking forward to the next hour to spend together with you and with a high-level panel with 4 scientists, which I would like to introduce shortly. We are here together with Professor Gabriele Berg. She is working at Graz University of Technology and also at the Leibniz Institute for Agricultural Engineering in Bioeconomy, so in Austria and as well as in Germany. Hello, Gabi.
Hello, Alfred.
Then we have Professor Lise Korsten from the University of Pretoria in South Africa. I hope the transition works well with the internet. Hello, Lise. Very well, perfect. And we have Professor Cornelia Smaller. She's working at the Julius Kühn Institute in Braunschweig in Germany. And she's not far away, so should work out very well. Hello, Cornelia.
Hello.
Last but not least, Professor Marcel van der Heiden, and he is also our guest. He's working at Agroscope and the University of Zurich in Switzerland. And he has a very bad voice, I heard. So give us a taste of your voice, Marcel. Yeah, seems to be really bad. No, he has to protect the voice because he has to give us a speak later on. So we will have a survey right now with several questions, and we will start. I will tell you about the survey. So first of all, for you to understand and to make it happen for you to give the choices, when you want to take part in the survey, please exit the theater mode. There is a button on your screen, it's theater mode. Please exit the theater mode and you will see the survey on the right side. I will give you the questions. I will read you the questions again. Survey number 1, we have 2 surveys, one at the beginning, one at the end. Survey number 1, question number 1. What do you know about soil diversity? Question number 1, how many microorganisms live in a handful of fertile and healthy soil? You have 3 choices. Question number 2, how can we increase the quantity and quality of the soil microbiome? Question number 3, what is your professional background? So we want to know about you also to understand where you are coming from, which sector you are into. So, till you are finished with your survey, I want to give you just 2 little insights from my organic farming experience. Number 1, who is making soil? So this is really something that we don't understand. Most humans, most people think we could make soil ourselves, but this is not the case. We have to ask other organisms to do it. So organisms in the soil, living in the soil, like plant roots, together with microorganisms in the soil, together with other organisms like earthworms, they produce our soil and they also produce the microbiome in the soil, which is the community of microorganisms in the soil. So all organisms in the soil are the so-called the microbiome in the soil. All organisms on your keyboard, for example, all bacteria, all fungi on your keyboard is the microbiome of your keyboard. All organism, all microorganism on your skin is the microbiome of your skin. So you can find huge differences in the microbiome, and in the soil, it's one of the most important microbiomes at all. But we cannot make soil. It's the microbiome together with plants, roots, together with earthworms, for example, who do this job. And why is the microbiome important? So there is a range of reasons. For me as a farmer, the most important reason is that they interact with plants. So plants control the microbiome. They can breed the microbiome, so they can select and can say, okay, I need more nutrient, more specific nutrient, like, for example, phosphorus is a plant nutrient, and then they can feed a certain type of the microbiome, like a certain species of bacteria. And then these bacteria can mobilize the nutrients for the plant. So the plant really needs the microbiome. The plant needs the microbes, the microorganism in the soil to control mobilization of nutrients, for example, but also to control pests and diseases. So there is a lot of reasons why we need the microbiome. And I'm really curious about the scientists, the panelists today who give us this information about the microbiome. Now, I would like to ask the direction if there is already some result. Please show it to us, the result of the first study. Okay, I can only see it very small, but it's quite clear. So, how many microorganisms live in a handful of fertile soil was the question, and you are all experts. Congratulations. Your answer is billions. So this is quite clear. Next answer, next question, next answer. So the second question was, how can we increase the quantity and quality of the soil microbiome? You had multiple choices. And number one was spreading compost as an option. Number two, sealing the soil surface. Well, deep plowing could be done also. Using pesticides or growing a mix of plants and/or. So what are the results? Yeah, spreading compost, very good idea. And also the mix of plants. Why spreading compost? Because in the compost there is already a huge amount of microorganisms, bacteria, and fungi, protozoa, archaea, whatever. And bringing this fresh microbiome into the soil is very helpful. On the other hand, growing different species of plants, as I already mentioned, these plants, they can feed, they can breed, they can transport the microorganisms in the soil. The more different plants you have, the more different microbes are approached. So, next question, what is your professional background? And here we see, yeah, here it's a little bit more diverse now. We see number one, research, politics, and then we also have the farming community and industry, the private sector, and other. So there is a lot of other and very little farming. I think I'm the only farmer here in the discussion today. Some politics and a lot of research. Okay, so this is very nice. Thank you for your contribution. This was really helpful for us, also for the panelists to know who they will approach in their sessions. Then we are already at the next step. We can show our first, we can bring our first input, and I ask Gabi, Professor Gabriele Berg, to give us her first short speech. Unfortunately, we only have a short time for each panelist. I'm sure it would be more interesting to get much more. Short introduction, Professor Gabriele Berg, she studied at Rostock University in Germany, and in 2005, she became a full professor in environmental biotechnology at the Graz University of Technology, and in 2021, she was becoming head of the department at the Leibniz Institute for Agricultural Technology and Bioeconomy, and therefore had an additional professorship in Potsdam. Her interest is focused on microbiome research and translation of the results into new biotechnological and microbiome management concepts for health issues. Gabi, may I ask you for your presentation?
Yes. Thank you very much, Alfred. It was a very good introduction into the topic, which you gave us already. So I'm also at the Leibniz Institute, only responsible for the microbiome, not for the whole institute, but this is fine. So I would like to give the introduction, so the scientific background of our panel. And also this Alfred has already done. So because he introduced the microbiome, which really has a simple definition because it comprises all microorganisms, bacteria, archaea, algae and fungi, protists as well, in their environment. So the microbiota, these are only the microorganisms. And so what we are doing here is postulate that microbial diversity is crucial, and this means simply the diversity of microorganisms. And so, but today we are really facing a huge challenge, and this is the Anthropocene. This is the human-dominated epoch, and this changed dramatically our planet, as you can see here, from the green to the red side. And the current situation of our planet is associated with a lot of crises. So you are aware, we have seen you are experts. We have the biodiversity crisis, antibiotic crisis, the climate crisis, the nitrogen crisis. And it was, I think, 2 or 3 days ago that also the planetary boundary pollution and microplastics was in the newspaper. Intense agriculture is one of the major drivers of these problems. And therefore, we have to change agriculture. We have really to find out new concepts. So, and for our agriculture, the microbiome is really crucial, and we studied that, and we have seen that there's already a shift in that environmental and plant-associated microbiome, and you can see it here in that figure. So first, it was highly diverse, evenly distributed, and highly specific to each organism and each room. And now we have much more dysbiosis, so not diversity anymore. And we have also a lot of fast-growing organisms, and we have hypermutators as well as more those carrying antimicrobial resistance. So together, all these factors lead to a multi-resistant and emerging microbiome. And from these microbiomes, we can see easily outbreaks and multi-resistant pathogens. Why is that so important? So the soil microbiome is really the main reservoir for microbiomes on Earth. So, and the plants, they take what they need, and then it goes into our food, into the animals, into the air. And at the end, it's also in our gut system. And we know that the main reason for a lot of chronic diseases in humans are the missing microbes. So the soil microbiome is really interlinked and crucial for all health issues, for those of the seeds, the apples, the animal, and the human. And we expect also consequences of this because we see that we have less soil fertility, and this is a problem for food security and safety. This is a very old problem. You can see here the ATB, so the Leibniz Institute, and already more than 400 years ago, they started with research on soil fertility. So, and we have a lot of empirical knowledge on that, but now we have also a lot of new technologies, especially based on molecular tools. And this changed the picture because now we are able to understand the microbiome and to develop microbiome management and biotechnology for sustainable circular economy. So, and now I'm fine with my statement, and I hope I could inspire also some questions or some rethinking. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gabi, also for keeping the time. I'm already guilty. I was not able to keep the time, but I will do my best. I have one question for you. Why do we need microbes at all? Because we as humans, we always think we are very clever, and we are now working with a lot of disinfectants because what we all know about COVID, for example, so we have to kill all the viruses, for example. So why not kill all the microbes, so all the bad guys? So it would be much easier.
So in fact, we really need them, but they don't need us. So our Earth would work perfect. They produce oxygen for our breath. They are responsible for health. They degrade everything what is produced, and they are responsible for the functioning of the planet, for the carbon cycle, for the nitrogen cycle. So, and what we have done in the last 50 years, maybe, the time frame is not completely clear, is we really reduced microbial diversity, and the network, the functional network of the microbiomes is not working anymore, and therefore we have the problems, and therefore we have the outbreaks of multi-resistant pathogens in agriculture, in humans, and also of the viruses. And therefore we have to change our lifestyle to do something.
Okay, super. Thank you, Gabi. That was really clear for me to understand how important the microbes are and the microbial diversity is. So our next speaker, Professor Marcel van der Heijden. Professor van der Heijden is professor for agroecology and plant microbiome interactions at the University of Zurich, professor for mycorrhiza ecology at Utrecht University, and he heads a research group at the Swiss Federal Research Institute, Agroscope. His research focuses on plant-soil interaction, soil biodiversity, soil ecological engineering, and the development of evaluation of sustainable farming systems, including organic and conservation agriculture. Marcel, I hope your voice is good enough for the next 5 minutes. All the best, and let us hear what you have to say.
Good evening from Switzerland. Indeed, I hope my voice is keeping up for the next 5 minutes. So would like to shortly introduce you about the ability for microbiome engineering for a more sustainable agriculture. And as Alfred said, my name is Marcel van der Heijden. So Gabi already mentioned the importance of microbial diversity. And here you see a graph where we manipulated microbial diversity in small microcosms. And then we assessed the performance of grassland communities and leek communities. And what we observed, and it's very important, I think, that if you have higher microbial diversity, the system as such is performing better. So you have a higher ecosystem multifunctionality, and multifunctionality is a summary of many different variables. It includes plant productivity, but it also includes, for example, the ability of microbes to prevent nutrient leaching, or to decompose plant material, or to prevent the loss of nitrogen into the air. So we know that soil microbial diversity is very important for ecosystem performance. But this work has been done in very simplified systems, and we wanted to know whether this is also applicable to the field situation. So that's why we developed a concept, a model system. And at the right side, that's the current situation. We have a very intensive agriculture, which works very well to have good yield, good productivity. That's what we need to feed the population on Earth. But at the same time, we see that the inputs, so fertilizers, pesticides, deep tillage, are very high. And as a consequence, soil biodiversity in intensively managed agricultural soils is often very low. And then linked to that, you see there are high losses. You see it here with the circle in yellow, high losses of nitrogen into the air, and also nutrients into the soil, into the drinking water. So that's we don't want that. And so if we compare that with more natural systems to the left, there usually nutrient cycles are much more closed. That means the nutrients are being used. And of course, the farmers also want that. They don't want to fertilize 100 or 200 kilograms of nitrogen and then see that half of it is being lost. So our idea is to develop sustainable systems where the nutrient cycle is more closed, and that we think is linked to enhancing soil biodiversity and especially soil microbial diversity. So of course you need to fertilize to get good yields, to get high yields, but with the help of nature, with the help of microbiome engineering, that's our model system, we think it's possible to get better yields and reduce the inputs. So one example which we did, we work a lot with mycorrhizal fungi. Mycorrhizal fungi are beneficial soil fungi that associate with many, many different crops and many plant species in general. So 2/3 of all plant species on our planet, they're colonized by these mycorrhizal fungi. And so what we did, we went to the field and we added these mycorrhizal fungi. So here, the right, you see this a root colonized by mycorrhizal fungi. We added the fungi to the field, and then we looked at the yield of maize. And this is a normal farmer's field. And so this is what you see. We inoculated a total of 60 agricultural fields from 1 to 60 different numbers. And then we looked at the mycorrhizal growth response. That means the increase in yield because of the inoculation with mycorrhizal fungi. And I think what's very nice about this result, it shows very clearly that in one field, we had 40% higher yield. So in the normal farming conditions, well fertilized in Switzerland, so it's possible to change, to engineer the microbiome to get better yields. So on 1/3 of the fields, we found significantly higher yields. On another third, we found slight yield increase, and another third, we found also some reduction. And now, of course, we want to predict why, under which conditions it's possible to enhance plant yield by engineering the microbiome. So this, I think, is a very nice example that shows that there is a lot of potential. And now, of course, we need to know when is that, why is that? One other thing which we investigated recently is the impact of fertilization, but also pesticide application on these beneficial mycorrhizal fungi, because mycorrhizal fungi, they take up a lot of nutrients for crops, also for plants. And so it's important to look at them, and people haven't really looked at them so much. So here you see a field study where we compared 60 different farms in Switzerland. In green is the organic farms, then in dark blue, conventionally managed farms that are tilled, and then on light blue, conventionally managed no-tillage fields. And then what we observed, and the R-squared is extremely high, I would say, for a field study, 30%, we observed that the higher the number of pesticides in the soil, the lower of the abundance of these beneficial mycorrhizal fungi in the roots of wheat. So it shows pesticide application is not necessarily good for these beneficial soil fungi. And so we got an additional piece of evidence that pesticide application is sometimes not good. They're applied, of course, to combat diseases. That works very well, but they have additional effects, and these have often not always been considered. So in a large European project with 210 fields from Sweden to Spain, we sampled the soils, and then we looked at the ability of these soils to acquire nutrients from a hyphal network. So the mycorrhizal fungi and other microbes, they grow into the roots. Then they also colonize this hyphal compartment where we added nutrient, phosphorus, 33 phosphorus. And then we wanted to know which fraction of the phosphorus is taken up by these mycorrhizal fungi, because they grow in this hyphal compartment. The roots cannot go there. They have no access. And then, to our big surprise, we actually observed that the application of fungicides was one of the biggest factors which explains the recovery of phosphorus from the soil. So it shows that fungicide application basically reduces the abundance of these beneficial fungi and also the ability of these beneficial fungi to acquire nutrients for crops. And now we, of course, want to go into more detail to understand how bad this is and what's the impact on agricultural production. And that's it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. That was really interesting, especially for me as an organic farmer. So we don't use any pesticide on our farm. We reduce tillage as much as possible. So I hope, and we seed, for example, rye as plants, which support mycorrhizal fungi also. So I hope we did well. I have one question for you, but first of all, I have a question for the audience. Please put your questions into the chat because it's important to, when we already have such a high-level panelists here and such a high-level scientists, then we get good questions from your side also. My question for Marcel is, we are doing a seed coating with compost generated from earthworm. So earthworm compost, as we call it, biohumus, is the seeds are coated before we seed it into the ground. Do you think that could be helpful to increase biodiversity in soil?
Yes, this is a very good question, of course. I think it's also already been done with legumes. As you know, legumes associate with nitrogen-fixing bacteria, and in some areas, for example, soybean doesn't have the right symbionts. So the seeds are being coated with these nitrogen-fixing bacteria. That helps very well under certain conditions. And I think now, and I think that's also what Gabi mentioned before, is it is our task as scientists to find out which microbes, and probably also which microbial consortia, not one, but a whole consortia of microbes, help plants to be resistant to diseases, for nutrient uptake and so on. So I think many also companies are working on that to coat them. It's already being done, but find the right microbes. Now I see often that only very specific ones, which everyone is using, bacillus, nitrogen-fixing bacteria, but there are many more in the soil, and we basically don't know what they're doing, because some might be just helper bacteria or helper fungi, which don't do something directly, but they help others in a consortia. And I think it's very important to investigate that in more detail. And of course, applying it to compost is also very important, because in the composting process, you enhance the temperature. So also some microbes die because of this composting process. So to bring some beneficials back is, of course, very important under certain conditions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And we go forward to our third panelist, Professor Cornelia Smaller. Very much looking forward also to her presentation. Cornelia Smaller is Vice Director of the Institute of Epidemiology and Pathogen Diagnostic at the Julius Kühn Institute. Professor Smaller has been conducting research on the field of microbial ecology since 1991. Her research focuses on the interaction of pathogens and their microbial antagonists in the root zone of plants, but also on the diversity of these microbial communities and their resistant signatures and plasmids in the soil. Please, Cornelia, go ahead with your presentation.
Yes, hello, everyone. I had very, very good talks before me. So actually, so far we learned that microbiomes or their diversity is very crucial. But microorganisms have also something that is quite impressive. They are able to adapt very fast to changing conditions and, for instance, when they're exposed to pollutants. So in my short presentation, I want to talk a little bit about the contribution of agriculture to the problem of antibiotic resistance. I know Gabi mentioned this, but here are a few more details about this. And because antibiotic resistance is really a very massive problem in the hospitals or also in animal husbandries, many antibiotics are used, but very often they fail to treat bacterial diseases. And that's why we have to include also the environmental dimension of antibiotic resistance. So a few words about antibiotic-resistant bacteria in the agro-ecosystem, and I'm talking mainly about the plant production system. We have learned already from previous talks that we have microbiomes in humans, we have the microbiome associated to plants, and here we want to look a little bit closer. So we have really large amount or numbers of bacteria colonizing the leaves, and the bacteria are originating from the soil, they're originating from the air and from the seed microbiome. And many of these bacteria are naturally resistant to antibiotics. And this is mainly due to the fact that they lack target, or they are able to pump out antibiotics, or they have a very low uptake. But I am mainly interested in the acquired antibiotic resistant genes. And this is a topic which is also the reason for the massive problems we have with antibiotic resistance. So antibiotics themselves, but also metal and biocide compounds used by humans, they are actually not only causing shifts in microbiomes, they select for resistance and they foster horizontally acquired resistant genes. So this is the reason why we are monitoring antibiotic-resistant bacteria and their resistant genes and mobile elements that help to exchange these resistant genes between bacteria. So starting from the organic fertilizer, and as we all know, it is important to use organic fertilizer to improve the soil carbon, the organic carbon in soils, and we have investigated manure, digestate, sewage sludge, and actually all of them contain not only high numbers of bacteria carrying resistant genes that are mobile, so they can be transferred, but they contain also pollutants. And the fate of these micropollutants is really an important aspect. And they depend very much on the type of pollutants, and they can be taken up by plants. And this is an important point. So when we are mixing the animal and human microbiome, animals, so the manure and digestates, or human microbiome, the sewage sludge, the soil bacteria, what happens? So we have a high cell density, we have nutrients available, and we have selective pressure. And we have a selective pressure of mixtures of pollutants. So bacteria, as I already said, they can easily adapt by acquiring resistant genes or by developing mutations. So what we are seeing is really something which is quite severe, because actually at the end, on our produce that we eat fresh, we are providing our gut microbiome with the resistant genes needed when, for instance, we have antibiotic therapy. So selective pressure in the gut microbiome, they provide the resistant genes our bacteria in the gut need to adapt. So micropollutants released as organic fertilizer, also irrigation water, reclaimed wastewater, for instance, into the environment, they foster, on the one hand, the mobilization of antibiotic-resistant genes from the chromosome to plasmids, their dissemination, They increase the abundance of bacteria carrying these transferable antibiotic resistances, and they change the soil and plant microbiome, and in particular, their diversity. And as there is this direct link between environment and the gut microbiome via food, we really need to decrease, on the one hand, antibiotic usage. On the other hand, we do need to improve our waste management strategies. So my important last point is we need healthy soils for healthy plants and healthy people. And with that, thank you.
Thank you, Cornelia. This is also something, a slogan that we use on our farm and with our communities, always healthy soils equals to healthy plants equals healthy people. And yeah, thank you for this interesting insights. My question is, how long do we already know that we have an issue here? And what do you think is, what are the activities to fight these issues? Is there any awareness from politicians, for example?
I think there is awareness, and of course it is not known only for a short time. So actually I have already almost 25 years of research done in this field, and actually it is known, but it is not really followed that much. And actually for a long time, this idea of One Health approach, namely that hospital, human medicine, veterinary medicine, and the environment needs to be investigated to have an idea about the factors facilitating the spread and evolution of resistance. So this is really an important research field.
Just as a side question, additionally, because I'm in the topic of composting also, and we do not only compost with earthworms, we also compost, as we call it, hot rotting compost or thermophilic compost, where we reach temperatures up to 65, 70 degrees Celsius. Would this be a solution, or are these genes or these bacteria also, some of them resistant against heat?
This depends very much on the taxonomy of the host of these resistant genes. I think that many human pathogens, such as Salmonella or E. coli, they will not survive the temperatures you are talking about, but other bacteria, such as Bacillus, they will survive. So, but certainly composting, and this is what I mean with management of waste. So we do need treatment of our manure or compost, and I'm sure that this is a very good contribution, but I think the main thing is, which we have to solve, we need less selective pressure by pollutants.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, now we come to our final talk of our fourth panelist, Professor Lise Korsten. Professor Korsten is a professor in food safety systems with a focus on fresh produce at the University of Pretoria, South Africa. She's also the co-director at the Center of Excellence Food Security, a national platform hosted between the University of Western Cape and Pretoria. Her research focuses on sustainable agriculture, food security, and post-harvest innovation for food waste and loss reduction. She has worked on the control of post-harvest diseases of subtropical fruit and has been a technical expert for the World Health Organization, FAO, and the South African National Accreditation System and other platforms. So Lisa, please, we are very happy to have you here. We are fortunate because South Africa has nearly the same time, even if it's a very, very long time to travel there, but at least it's the same time of the day. So please give us your talk.
Thank you very much, Chair, and it's wonderful to be part of this very important conference. I'm going to share with you an overarching view of the discussions where we've been, and I'm going to round it off and close the session with just a little bit of a perspective. We are really talking about planetary health. It is bigger than the One Health, and there's a lot of narratives today, and the whole issue is really we should think about health in a different way, and I think we've learned that from COVID. And it takes delocalization of health to another level, from public health global to planetary health, and that is inclusive of Ecohealth. So where do we fit in with plant health? And I do believe that plant health is really encapsulating the total health of our planet, and the core of it is very much the soil. And what's also important is the interfaces, and that's where the whole microbiome really plays this crucial role. And it's very important to understand the cross linkages, the interaction between these different spheres. If we do a bibliometric analysis of planetary health and we try and better understand where microbiomes and soil ecosystems come in, we can clearly see the interactions between different disciplines. And I'm talking about the One Health concept, which of course reflect plant health, animal health, and human health. We're talking about sustainable development, achieving the sustainable development goals. We are talking about food systems, and that's really where I'm working in, looking at it from a plant health point of view. So how can we use the microbiomes to address our critical challenges of this century? And I want to end my talk with bringing the different topics together. We've already heard from Connie a wonderful overview of antimicrobial resistance, the buildup of antimicrobial resistance in the environment, the flow from that, from the use in human health, the incredible overuse of antibiotics in animal husbandry, and how this is impacting on our soil and water resources. Of course, we use the water for irrigating our crops, and of course it will impact on our soil microbiomes. So how do we restore the soil health? How do we consider plant health in the context of plant pathogens? How do we restore and move away from excessive use of fungicides, get a better, bigger crop and improve our yield? So if we talk about sustainability, and we actually refer to the sustainability pyramid, it really is about restoring our soil health, to achieve root health, to achieve plant health within the One Health concept. And this can really be achieved through these building blocks. We need successful photosynthesis, and that's really where we're talking about complex carbohydrates. It's really building the plant's resistance. We're talking about production of these complete proteins. We are talking about transferring sugars back through the roots into the soil systems to feed our microbiomes, to actually release essential nutrients for our plant to improve growth and yield. We are talking about storage of surplus energies. We are talking about the lipids and fats, etc. And these are essential building tools for our plant membranes to fight any attacks by plant pathogens. Then, of course, we're talking about switching on those defense mechanisms. And it's all about warfare out there in the plant and the ecosystem. Our plants are continually attacked by pathogens. It is continually under stress by environmental conditions, global warming, and of course, pollution. And when I talk about pollution, I'm also talking about not only antimicrobial resistance building up in the ecosystem, but the effective establishment of foodborne pathogens on the plant. So that's not their natural host. But because of selection pressure and pollution, over time, we are now introducing human pathogens into the plant. So how can we use microbiomes to study this, to bring in mitigation strategies to ensure safe, healthy food for all? So the transition from the soils and the crops towards biological farming goes through these successive steps, and it is to restore the natural and biological abilities of the soil and the plant system. It's to look at the innate characteristics and the advanced functions to enable that effective defense from soil-borne pathogens and plant pathogens and airborne pathogens, to ensure safe, healthy food. So our research program is really focusing on food security and how we can use microbiome studies in the soil and on the plant surface to give us a better understanding of these interactions between the microorganisms and the plant within the bigger ecosystem context. So with that, I've just given you a summary of our different research programs and how we all actually interlink. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. This is really interesting. Again, for me as an organic farmer who drives the zero pesticide strategy on his farm, this is really, really, really nice to hear. But my question to you is, if I understood it right, we should go back to a natural system. And are you optimistic? How bright is our future in this case? How long will we need if we start right now? How long will we need to come back into real natural system you use without pesticide and maybe without antibiotics? Is it even possible? What are your thoughts on this?
In my lifetime.
Okay.
So I believe the transition has already happened. I did my PhD on the establishment of biological control. I was the first person who registered a biological control product in South Africa. And in those days, the farmers frowned upon it. They thought it was flower children and it was grey science. They didn't support it. Today, most of our farmers are asking for natural biocontrol products, plant growth promotion products, but we still need chemicals, particularly in large-scale production systems. There's some certain aggressive pathogens that we need to strategically think how we're going to move that transition from total dependence on chemicals towards a more natural switching on your natural defense mechanisms in the plant and using the microbiome and the microbial population within the plant and soil environment to protect the plant and enhance the plant for optimum growth and yield. And of course, at the end of the day, the food must be healthy and safe.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would like to go forward and again ask the audience to answer some of our questions for the second survey. I hope the direction is ready to put this into place. I will again read the questions and give you the answers, and I ask you to put your answers in. So survey number 2, your priorities for research on the soil microbiome. Question number 1, which aspects in the panel discussion do you find particularly important? Please specify. We will have a kind of tag cloud or word cloud. Then the second one, who should take stronger action to increase diversity, the diversity of the soil microbiome? And then we have different sectors for you to choose. Politicians, are researchers, farmers, processing industry, private sector, trading in business, consumers, or educational institutions like schools and universities. So while you are putting your answers into the survey, I would like to invite all panelists to open their microphones. And meanwhile, we can answer some of the questions from the chat. And I will start with the last one. Sarah Senturk, I hope that was right, is asking or is commenting, I am a One Health researcher working on plant health, and this is absolutely such an essential discussion, and I'm grateful to be here. So what, maybe you have some comments on that, why One Health is such an important topic. Question goes to our panelists. Why is One Health so important? Cornelia, please, just shout right in.
Okay, so I think for a very long time, at least for antibiotic resistance research, the fields were very much separated. And only rather recently, people recognized that all these microbiomes and environments are interlinked. And Gabi introduced this, and I think we are all seeing this, that you can not achieve a better idea when you are just separating or focusing on one research field. They are interconnected, and that's why it is important to approach it like this.
I completely agree in that. And we have also seen that the microbiome is already damaged. So it is resistant, but there are also these fast-growing organisms, for example, which have not that functional potential of some of the others. So, and also the density of the network is really important for plant health. And then it started in soil health, seed health, then we have the plant health, and then it comes to the other organisms. It is really transmitted.
Yeah, maybe one further comment. I think science is still, often very reductionistic. And I think this more holistic picture that everything is interconnected is very important. And I think it's very nice to see that people are more and more realizing indeed that the soil influences the plant, which influences us, our food or food from animals. So it's the more holistic approach, which is also very complicated, of course, because you need to be expert in many different fields, and that's not always easy.
I can maybe also just add, I think it's worthy to note that the United Nations in 2015 had the special sessions, and they adopted not only the One Health, but the Global Antimicrobial Resistance Strategic Plan. And what is important that both FAO and the OIE, which is the International Animal Health Organization, joined forces. And then we saw later to 16, 17, and 18 that they started looking at global surveillance, looking at global capacity and regulation in terms of addressing the global challenges. And they started including plant health more and more. Now, if you speak to traditional One Health people, they will always speak about environmental health. And we always say, no, plant health is a crucial element. It provides plant-animal feed, it provides food, and it's an essential cornerstone. And we now see that there's a global move to include all these different dimensions. And that's the only way we're going to truly address the challenges. Otherwise, we're not going to achieve our sustainable development goals.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, I have to read it first. No, I can't find it anymore, sorry. Yeah, Carla is asking, what concrete measures would be needed to tackle this problem? Is there a list? And I know the question was coming from for a specific talk, but I would open it up in a more general approach. So we heard about different issues that we are facing right now, considering the soil microbiome in the soil, and so what are the solutions? What do you think? Yeah, yes. Please.
I think maybe one term is diversification. This is really important, so that we have to introduce more crop species. It started already here that we don't have enough diversity. So the crop species, the cultivar species, we have to diversify also our agro-ecosystems. The question is if monoculture is in future possible. So we have really to diversify the whole agricultural setting.
I have one further comment. I also want to say diversification. I think that's one important measure, but it's very important to realize that farmers will earn more money with some crops as with other crops. So that means if people want to stimulate this diversification, it's also important to look at the economic side and enhance the demand, for instance, for organic food or environmentally friendly produced food. Because I think that's often the problem, because with particular crops, they make most money, so they will go for that crop, and that will go then at the expense of this crop diversification. There are, of course, the economic pressures. We don't often, sometimes don't consider them, and the farmers are faced with this daily, of course. This is very important.
This is very, very important, I think, also to restructure the economic system and not only to pay for the products the farmers produce, because they are doing so much more for our environment and for our development. It is so much more, and it started with the carbon credits, but I think it's even much more for the ecosystem service and service for the society. So we have completely to rethink the economic system in agriculture, I think. So
I think there are studies.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I hope that there are also politicians here, because I have really the hope that things are changing now. But we have one very nice example, or bad example. These are the biogas plants. They were a perfect idea, but the result, at least how it worked in Germany, was that we had a lot of monocropping of maize and oilseed rape, and the diversification of the agro ecosystem was getting worse due to this development, and there were the wrong stimuli. And I think this is important to keep in mind.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. I regret, but I have to shut down the discussion right now because we have results from our second survey. So which aspects in the panel discussion do you find particularly important? Please specify maximum 3 characters. Okay. So we have a lot of different input from our audience. Thank you very much. Microbial diversity, health, One Health, antimicrobial resistance. So there is, but you can read them yourself. So it's really important to get that input from the audience. Thank you very much. Can we have the second, please? Second, the results for the second question. Who should take stronger action to increase the diversity of the soil microbiomes? I was very curious about that question. What you think? Who has to take the lead? I think everyone, we all have to put more effort into it. But yeah, what did you think? Okay, so there is a lot of research already going on, even if it's quite a young sector of research, I think, microbiome research. So you think there is already a lot of research done, but the politicians, they have to act, and the farmers are next. Yes, that's good, because farmers have to be motivated, farmers have to be educated, and we have to raise awareness on a farmer's level. I think there is a huge increase right now. Soil health is an important topic for farmers. They understand it, and what I think, if we can convince them then that if they want to head over their farm to the next generation, they have to have healthy soils right now. Otherwise, within the next generation, I think it doesn't really work at all. So we have the politicians with more than 50%, then the farmers 30%, and then we have the private sector with more the trading business. I'm sure they can do a lot of awareness raising for consumer on a consumer level. The consumer have to do a little bit, and in schools and university. That was right clear. Still, a little bit surprising the result on one side, but I'm very happy to have this. So now I would love to keep this discussion on for the next 3 hours, but maybe Marcel will not be so happy with us. But I can invite you right now to a deep dive in another. We will put the link, so we have to close the Zoom session now, but we can go on. Everyone can take a cup of coffee, maybe even a glass of wine now is already allowed. And you will see on the link, there is the link does soon arrive, and with deep dive in the chat, you can directly hit the link, and then you can talk to us and to each of the audience, and we can still have a chat and a discussion. And yeah, so therefore I thank all the panelists. It was really fantastic to have you here. Such a high level science community. It's a kind of microbiome of scientists. So, but you are no microorganism, so it's not a microbiome, but it's a community of scientists. And I love to talk to you. And thank you for your input. This was really fantastic. And I hope that we see all of us, all of you, and also the panel, the audience and the panelists in the deep dive. You can find the link in the chat on your right side. Okay, thank you very much and enjoy your evening.
Thank you, Alfred.
Thank you very much.